President Buhari says investments are up for deployment in the provision of aviation critical infrastructure and security.
Nigeria will continue to make significant investments in the provision of aviation infrastructure and facilities.
President Oshibajo in Kano recognizes over children injured in gas explosion at Sabongeri.
Peace and security of all individuals and all residents of our states are responsibility of all.
Safety for the country, play safe for the elections, Chief of Defense Staff tells politicians.
The town is secured from prayer, I must add. Elections are imminent.
Good morning, Nigeria. Today we continue our conversation on checkmating corruption in the electoral process, plus a scholarship for politicians in a period of history.
While promoting electoral accountability and bringing to the barriers reduction level corruption in the electoral process is certainly a sine qua non if we must get our democratic journey right from now on. Kingsley?
That's absolutely correct, Nadabu. Now, this position was canvassed yesterday on Good Morning Nigeria, as guests were on the same page as they characterized the nature and attendant display of political manipulation and acts of corruption in our electoral process.
Now, your guests yesterday enumerated corruption going on as business unusual in their attitudinal bid to commercialize the process. And this is rife as politicians co-opt party officials and the electorate in the money inducement process. Kingsley?
Now, you'll recall that yesterday that you were not on set with me.
I wasn't really.
But we did hear about what is referred to as page 2 saga. And that is to say, page 1 is where a politician of note normally will canvass support from a broad range of constituents, and upon the conclusion of the canvass efforts, the constituents would then ask, what of the next page? That is page 2.
Page 2,
page
right.
2 being inducement.
Right.
Yes, now that's a wide range, of course, of incidents of political corruption. And this will include instances of see and buy, and what we do know, for instance, of attempts sometimes of corrupting electoral officers. And we have also seen instances where some persons believe that you have to outspend the other candidates, notwithstanding how those resources were acquired. But more worrisome is what we have seen in the lead up to the primaries of the various political parties.
Yes, indeed, Kingsley. It is also said when it's a case of a great disadvantage to some, pieces of legislation will rather with state apparatuses and instrumentality of the enforcement backed by just a few instead of all involved. Then that is also copiously entrenching corruption, Kingsley.
All right, so today we are returning to the subject matter in continuation of the issues that were raised yesterday, how to significantly reduce the incidence of political corruption, more particularly in the lead up to the 2023 general elections, and therefore how to further entrench the tenets of democracy once the voters do get the right choices and the right persons get elected into office. without having to worry over payback time to the deep pockets who have sponsored them. Then, of course, there will be a level playing field and hopefully good governance.
Okay, there are many more matches, and of course, Kingsley, questions arising. We will be taking them in our stride too, and we'll have a second conversation where we talk on a political scorecard this time for a certain period in the history of our nation. And on that note, I welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria. I am Yusuf Nadabo Usman.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I also join my colleague Nadabo to welcome our viewers to our broadcasts live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. In the course of the program, we have our complimentary segments, including newspaper review and business. Right now, here's Dennis Adegunloye, who has the highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Dennis.
Yes, good morning, Kingsley and Nadabo. Good morning, Nigerians. Here is the morning news. President Muhammadu Buhari says investments will be deployed to the provision of critical infrastructure and facilities for the desired safety and security in the civil aviation industry. President Muhammadu Buhari stated this while receiving in audience the visiting Secretary General of the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, Juan Carlos Salazar.
Nigeria will continue to make significant investments in the provision of aviation infrastructure and facilities for safe, secure, environmentally friendly, and sustainable economic development of international civil aviation. We will also keep supporting the ideas and aspirations of the International Civil Aviation Organization and the achievement of its strategic objectives in collaboration with other member states of the organization.
President Muhammadu Buhari on Tuesday granted audience to the Olu of Warri Kingdom, Ugiame Atuwashe III. The monarch was accompanied on the visit by some prominent traditional title holders from Ichikiri land. The high-level engagements with the presidents held behind closed doors was the second since the beginning of this year. Details of their discussions were, however, not disclosed to journalists. During his last visit to the State House in January, the Olu of Warri described President Buhari as a dogged patriot and fervent believer in Project Nigeria. He used the opportunity to draw the attention of the president to what they called some burning issues dear to the hearts of the Ichekiri people, which may have been addressed, hence the return visit to show appreciation. The presidency has reacted to a statement credited to the Northern Elders Forum calling on a section of the country to leave the federation. The federal government, in a statement, reassures Nigerians that there is only one elected government in Nigeria and no group can take that responsibility away. Like many other countries around the world, Nigeria is feeling the strain of the current period of volatility and uncertainty. Now is not the time to seek to exacerbate divisions among Nigerians. Rather, all Nigerians must come together and work to overcome the challenges the country is facing at the moment. The city of Kano is calm, with people engaging in their routine businesses after an explosion of a gas cylinder that paralyzed activities in Sabonguri area of the metropolis. Some of the families of the victims of the explosion recount their experience.
Here, every my window even scatter every place before we run to the school. So immediately we run to school. Before I watch my children to the house. So before we find ourselves come here.
They direct me here. Immediately we come here, we see I saw my son, that he won't, that he's not alive. I need to thank God.
Meanwhile, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has commiserated with the government and people of Kano State over the gas explosion at Sabonguri area of the state capital. Professor Osinbajo, during the visit to the scene of the incident, expressed shock that little children were among those injured.
And say that the peace and security of all individuals and of all residents of our states are responsibility of all.
Elections anywhere in the world can only take place when a country is safe, so politicians must always place the safety of the country above every other priority. The Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Irabo, gave the advice at a security seminar at the National Defense College, Abuja.
Our politicians must factor the necessity to have a secure state first before vying for any elective position. Without a secured country, I must add, elections are a mirage.
Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed has asked Facebook and other social media platforms to stop allowing the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, to use their platforms to incite violence and instigate ethnic hatred in Nigeria. The minister made the appeal in Abuja at a meeting with a team from Facebook. The minister said since IPOB had been proscribed and classified as a terrorist organization, Facebook has no justification for yielding its platform to the organization to further its campaign of hate and destabilization of the country. Lai Mohammed restated that the meeting was to enable government and Facebook to discuss the increasing use of the platform by separatists and anarchists. However, the minister said the government will be monitoring Facebook and other platforms closely in the days ahead to ensure compliance with the demand as it steps up the campaign for the responsible use of social media. And that is the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues shortly after this break with Kingsley and Nadapo. Have a great day.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. One of our complimentary segments on this program is business. Let's now join Kulade for details.
The West African Insurance Supervisors Association, WISA, is pushing for regional integration to strengthen trade and cooperation through College of Insurance Supervisors of the West African Monetary Zone, CISWAMS. Consequently, member states of WISA are meeting to consider how to strengthen the insurance supervisory body for effective regional integration. The supervisors emphasized that the region is endowed with virtually everything needed to achieve a superlative outcome.
The various templates we plan to develop: template for preceptive country report, template for implementation of regulatory standard and presentation of Governors Convergent Council directive, template for financial stability report. All these templates, they are permanent documents that require joint discussion.
The International Association of Insurance Supervisors, IAIS, has provided a forum for members to share their experiences and understanding of insurance supervisory and insurance markets.
The West African Insurance Supervisor says it will engage both public and private sectors to reshape insurance in the sub-region. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
Thank you very much, Kunle, for the business packet. Next for us, newspaper review.
Well, as usual, Bayo TV is already in the house here. Good morning, Bayo.
Good to see you again, Yusuf. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
Good to see you.
Right, we have some few newspapers here, right? And then I think I have The Nation and, of course, the Al Jazeera Middle. Let's start with The Nation, please. Let's see what The Nation has for us today in Nigeria. On the front page, we have some few stories. And these include, on page 4, we have many feared kidnapped on Abuja Kaduna Highway. Details of that on page 4. EFCC relocates arrested accountant general, ex-speaker it held. The details of that on page 5. And on page 2, 9 died, many injured in Kano gas explosion. And on page 25, Deborah, MBA sheet Sokoto conference. Moving down a little, just below the masthead, we have Ekiti 2022. The riders are Oni, Fayemi clash over alleged plots to disrupt poll. The second rider is Oyebanji. I will take Ekiti to next level of greatness. And finally, we have as a rider under Ekiti 2022, ADP chairman quits over inept national leadership. You have details of all these on page 26. On page 4, federal government puts Facebook under watch over IPOP with this wider support for separatists and unacceptable. And then still on page 4, Amotekun's success makes restructuring imperative, says Bauchi governor. Atiku promises power devolution. The big story on the Nation newspaper is presidential governorship primaries. APC begins process, and the writers are delegates election tomorrow, governorship candidates shadow poll on Friday. Getting down to the foot of the page, there are two stories. The one is on page 2, and it says bandits killed 7 at that village head. Wherever it is, I don't know, but maybe details will be there on page 2. And then on page 24, no scoring error in UTME, says Jam. Now, before I hand you over to Kinsley, let's look at Al Jazeera Weekly. We have some few stories here, and these include, right below the masthead, we have 2023, 12 governors, 370 delegates. Can we have the Al Jazeera with me, please? Right. 2023, 12 governors, 370 delegates signed Tinubu's presidential form. This on page Buhari to unveil NMPC limit on July 18th is carry. Other stories include those on page 4, that on page 4, that is, which says Kano blast, 9 bodies recovered from collapsed school. And on page 10, Deborah Samuel, NBA postpones Sokoto conference indefinitely. And of course, on page 2 again, Russia withdraws from Council of Baltic Sea States. The big story on Al Jazeera Weekly, midweek, is presidency to NEF, the Elders Forum, that is. You can't take role of government. And the writers here are, says Northern Elders Forum wrong for making divisive comment. And the other writer is, we didn't release any statement urging a group to leave Nigeria, says Baba Ahmed. You get details of that on page 8. And the other stories on Al Jazeera midweek are, on page 24, IITA launches post-harvest loss reduction project in 7 states. And on page 29, why I can't run for presidency, says Adeshina. And then on page 22, IPMAN demands payment of 40 billion naira fuel haulage debt. And these are the stories trending on Al Jazeera midweek. Kinsley?
All right, thanks a lot, Nodabo. Let's also take a quick look at the front page of the Punch newspaper. From above the nameplate, Jet A1 Airlines and marketers for around 80 naira per liter supply deal crashes. Product sells for 612 naira per liter. Abductees' families vow to stop Abuja Kaduna train resumption. Poly lecturers plan indefinite strike from June, and ASU knocks Nwajuba. EFCC arrests Speaker Ete over 240 million naira NDDC contract. Deborah's murder. Khan, Plateau, and Benue churches adamant insist on Sunday protest. Ignore governor's warnings against demonstration and seek justice for Deborah. No street protests, say Plateau Borno governments. El-Rufai warns troublemakers. NBA slams Tambuwal, wants murder charge for suspects. And police advise Kano. 9 killed in Kano. Police and residents disagree on the explosion. You can see the photographs there from the scene of the blasts that occurred yesterday in the area of Kano. 2 Kaduna internet fraudsters back 6 years imprisonment. Kwara woman nabbed for trafficking 4 teenagers. Your succession comment arrogant. Presidency replies Northern elders. NCAA warns pilots and airlines over hazardous weather. And choose female deputies. Aisha Buhari tells presidential aspirants.
Thank you, Kinsley. 9 bodies have been recovered from the rubble of a building that collapsed at Sabongeri, in fact, at Aba Road in Sabongeri, Kano. There were speculations about the causes of the explosion, but some latest information indicates that the explosion came from a gas cylinder. And because the collapsed building was next to a primary school, it caused panic, and parents had to rush up and down trying to look after and search for their children. Many of them succeeded in withdrawing their children. Some of the children, unfortunately, suffered some minor injuries. There were speculations over the explosion, but the Commissioner of Police for Kano State, Samaila Shoaibu, said that security agencies are on ground. He listed the Civil Defense, the Brigade Commander, the Air Force, as well as Director SSS and the police are all on ground to ensure that they get to the root of the causes, and the people should put their mind at rest. Barely 24 hours after the nation was shocked about revelation that the Accountant General of the Federation is emerged in 80 billion naira fraud, a former Speaker of the House of Representatives has also been reportedly arrested by the Economic and Financial Crime Commission over shady Niger Delta Development Company contracts. The former Speaker, Patricia Olubumi Ete, is being questioned over 130 million naira she allegedly received through her personal account from a firm that was awarded a contract worth 240 million naira in 2011. The project was for a supply of solar power straight for communities in Akwa Ibom State. She has not been able to explain why the contracting firm transferred 130 million to her account. According to the report, it indicates that actually the contractor collected 287 million for a 240 million contract. Actually, to the account of the former speaker. The suspicion is that this probably is a constituency project. Again, bandits are on the rampage again, have reportedly on Kaduna Abuja highway, blocked the highway and taking hostage of commercial and private vehicles that were commuting on the highway. Persons were said to have been abducted between Kuruminkare and Katari. This is said to have occurred around 4 p.m. yesterday. Bandits are said to have also invaded Katari village and on Tuesday morning and abducted about 16 persons. This incident is said to have happened about kilometer 155 along Kaduna Abuja highway, located, and the location is reported to have witnessed several attacks by bandits who blocked the road to abduct the drivers. It may be recalled that a youth copper who was traveling along that road was said to be sadly caught in a crossfire between security and bandits there, and he lost his life. The same highway is said to have been reinforced with security following the attack on the train on the March 28. Meanwhile, relations of family members of kidnapped Abuja train passengers have threatened to picket the Abuja and Kaduna stations over planned resumption of train services. The managing director of the Nigerian Railway Corporation, Fidel Dohiria, says that everything they are seriously under pressure from many Nigerians to resume services. He said the corporation was in touch with the genuine relations of those who are affected. Mr. Dohiria says that we have worked very hard to the best of as we can to ensure that those held hostage are released. We have also been under pressure from Nigerians to resume operations. We have weighed the pros and cons, and you say, if you identify those against resumption, and it indicates that you discover they are not related to those who are unfortunately in captivity. We are talking to the families of those who are in captivity, and we are doing all we can. The Punch reports that one of the leaders of the group says that they will continue to hold daily protests at Kaduna and Abuja against the operations. There's a story that Nadabu you read is from Presidency's source saying that only democratically elected leaders can take decision to steer the ship of the nation. This is a reaction to a statement credited to the Northern Elders Forum that is asking a section of the country to leave the federation, describing the call as delusional arrogance that will lead a group to publicly state terms and conditions for the existence of our nation. Spokesman for the president, senior special assistant to the president, Garba Shehu, indicated that no self-appointed and unelected group can take the right of a democratically elected leadership. The decision to steer our nation, Nigeria, lies with the elected leaders. And therefore, Northern Elders Forum, who have no traction with any responsible group, no matter the coverage they get in the media, cannot arrogate such to themselves. And finally,
go ahead.
Finally, I was just going to draw Kingsley's attention. You recall the youth copper who disappeared and they found her body at Maitama. Now, the police have come up with an update. 3 persons have been arrested. And it was found that the lady was lured to a residence in Oguta Street somewhere in Maitama, where a lady and 2 gentlemen that have been arrested. It was said that the lady lured the youth copper to the residence. The men tied her up and left. Later on, the lady attacked the copper, defaced her with acid. And by the time the other gentleman was called in the evening, the lady had died. And at 3 a.m., they bundled her body in the car and dumped her where she was found. So the 3 of them have been in the net of the police. The Commissioner of Police, FCT, gave the update on that incident.
Well, that's interesting. But there were also initial reports that the body was dismembered when it was found. No, this was dismembered.
Okay.
But now the police, according to what you are saying, are now indicating that her face was disfigured on account of the acid attack. So what happened? The curious aspect, if you recall, had to do with the child she was with. At the time she was said to have left Lokogoma. But we do hope that the police, of course, will proceed with what is important in terms of their investigation so they can develop the case file and then put on trial the persons who have been arrested for this particular incident. Now,
the child, they actually indicated that the child was found with a paternal family relation near a Catholic church. Also, the lady that is involved in this gruesome alleged murder is said to have done it because he had interest in the same man with the youth copper.
All right. So whatever the motive was, there's been a dead body.
Yeah, sure.
So then the charges will be drafted accordingly. I just wanted to draw attention to the explosion that occurred yesterday in Kano. Unfortunately, considering the tension in parts of the country, there seemed to have been a misconstruction as to the actual cause of what happened. Initially, it said, it was a bomb attack by some suicide bombers who targeted a particular area where you have mostly non-natives or non-indigens who are resident and also school, but it has emerged now that it was a gas explosion that occurred. We have had incidents in the past, including in Kaduna, where a very highly placed atomic or nuclear expert was killed.
Malam, yes.
Yeah, was killed in a gas explosion incident.
Incidentally, Professor Malam was a classmate of mine at the College of Arts and Sciences area. Yes, we lost him from a gas explosion in Sabon Tisha in Kaduna.
Sure. May so continue to rest in peace.
Yes.
But the point is this: we deal with hazardous materials close to residential neighborhoods. We deal with hazardous materials close to a school. Where are the authorities to say, look, this is not an item you can be using in this particular place? Whether it was a mechanic workshop, a welder's workshop, or whatever it was, you have a school that is nearby. And sometimes we take these items for granted. Oh, you want 10 liters or 4 liters of petrol, or gas cylinders, and so on and so forth. When you mishandle those hazardous materials, this is the consequence. And it is only sufficient for the appropriate agencies, state and federal, to go around from time to time and say, look, you can't run your business in this environment because it is not safe. In fact, in the siting of schools, particularly elementary and secondary schools, there are certain activities you cannot have around those locations. Including this one, you can't have a drinking joint, for instance, close to a school.
When you talk about schools, even the rules are even there, even for filling stations to be sited or located somewhere.
That's right. Filling stations should not
Filling
be
stations generally,
in
residential areas and the rest, because anything can happen there, and a little mishandling of these materials or items can just bring about, colossal loss of life.
And the sad thing is that we are not learning lessons. This is not the first one. There were such gas explosions in Enugu, somewhere in Anambra too, and sometimes somewhere in Lagos. And the pronouncement, public pronouncement by government was that they were going to make sure that such highly explosive material is not located in residential or an unsafe area. But nobody seemed to have taken care of that.
Anyway. Absolutely. Well, this is not an act of God, it's an act of man.
No,
Carelessness.
Absolute carelessness. Bayo, thanks for being around.
Thank you
again
too.
Tomorrow. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We're live on NTA's network service. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we have our double dip. First, returning to our conversation yesterday on checkmating corruption in the political process.
And as a prompt for our conversation, here is Abdusalam Juppil with excerpt that is packaged from the first part of our conversation yesterday as a backgrounder. Let's take a listen.
The question that comes to mind, do you expect an ordinary Nigerian that is witnessing inducement, bribery, to go and report a politician that has military personnel, that has police personnel, that have convoys of, we talk about insecurity, but go and see every aspirant that is contesting, they move with an average of 4 to 5 policemen. These are all abuses that are glaring before the eyes of even the security personnel and agencies, and nothing is being done.
There's a section of the Electoral that says state apparatus, including the media, should not be spent to the advantage or disadvantage of any of the aspirants. But we know all of things. Some aspirants are run out of town in many states. They cannot access the state media. And that is part of corruption. Today, what do you see? When you see some public officers owning estate, owning luxurious vehicle properties everywhere, all over the country, even abroad, the Code of Conduct Bureau is saddled with responsibility of fighting the menace of corruption. But have we gotten the huge support? Let me tell you, there's a huge dilemma. If we have to fight corruption, like Mr. President said, if we don't kill corruption, corruption will kill us.
What is happening now over the years is totally commercialization of the political system in the country. So what you do investments on a particular candidate or political parties. By the time they get into power, they will now you get the juicy contract, you get the juicy appointment, not bothering about governance. So the losers are Nigerians. That is why we have been advocating and campaigning against vote buying.
There are good practice in tackling corruptions around the world. The corruption we'll be talking about is political corruptions, and who are those characters that are mostly associated with it? Are the politically exposed persons? And then at the same time, because of the kind of patron-client culture that has been created, you must give. And I'd like to quickly just identify some of these key norms that sustain these corruptions. One, they say, waiting day for us, waiting day for the boys. Jide mentioned another one, page 2. Then another one associated with some of the political parties, share the money. And then the other one, again, if you join us, your sin is forgiven. These are the conventional norms that we have now accepted within ourselves. And this is actually what is the big problem.
All right, now those were excerpts from a very interesting conversation yesterday. Today, of course, we are continuing. And we have two new guests. We, of course, have recalled the Reverend David Ugolo, who is Executive Director, African Network for Environmental and Economic Justice, to be part of the conversation again this morning. The Reverend David, our pleasure to have you with us on the program today.
Thank you, sir.
All right. And we also have with us here in the studios the chairman of the Code of Conduct Bureau. That's Professor Mohammed Issa. Professor Issa, it's our pleasure to have you on the program.
Good morning.
Okay.
Yeah, also we have joining us for rather in the conversation is Indi Kato, public affairs analyst. She's joining us right here in the studio here. You're welcome, Indi.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so again, I'd like to have you with us for the second leg of today's conversation, checkmating corruption in the electoral process, beginning with the chairman of the Code of Conduct Bureau. There are widespread concerns as to what's happening in full view of all with regard to the activities in the lead up to the party primaries and ultimately to the 2023 general elections. What should Nigerians expect as the role of the Code of Conduct Bureau in checking corruption in the electoral process?
Thank you very much. And let me start by saying that the Code of Conduct Bureau is an institution saddled with responsibility of fighting corruption. And its role is very critical, and it is strategically placed to ensure that corruption within public service is brought to its knees. What we are doing as far as the electoral process is concerned, from the time when the timetable was released, we'll be looking at it and we'll be looking at where we can come in. Basically, the Code of Conduct Bureau has a role to play in respect of being a police or watchdog to public officers. So whatever public officers can do at the end of the day to perpetrate certain level of corruption in the electoral process, the Code of Conduct Bureau can come in to ensure that it prevents, and where it happens, it controls, and ensure that the culprits are punished. Being an institution mandated to enforce compliance with Code of Conduct for public officers, election process is manned and managed by public officers. So if we can succeed in taming it at that level, so the widespread corruption from the contestants who are maybe not public officers at that point in time and not under the mandate of the Code of Conduct Bureau will not succeed. The issue is that corruption is a two-way or more than two-way traffic. An individual who is undergoing a particular process and is having a target which he wants to achieve, he cannot be able to achieve that target without bringing in a public officer who will assist him, who will at the end of the day collaborate with him in one way or the other to imbibe certain unlawful means or unlawful process, or to corrupt the lawful process in order to achieve that target. So if we adequately succeed in watching all the public officers that are saddled with responsibility of managing or administering the electoral process, definitely we can reduce the level of corruption at that level. And what we intend to do at the end of the day is that to collaborate with INEC first. All INEC staff, the
the commissioners, chairman commissioners, and all other staff are public officers. They are under the mandate of Code of Conduct Bureau 100%. And none of them can escape justice from Code of Conduct Bureau where he is found wanting. Now we have been talking to the leadership of INEC ever since the process started, when the issue of primaries and what have you, the timetable was rolled out. We wrote to INEC. We sought for INEC support and cooperation in this respect. And we have had a very good response from the leadership. And we are looking forward to sit together and map out how we're going to achieve this. Then when these issues of primaries arose, some few weeks back, 2 or 3 weeks back, we had a course to watch what is happening and who are the public officers that will be involved at the end of the day. And eventually, the quagmire in relation to Section 84, Sub 12 of the Electoral Act, as to whether public officers must resign before they participate in the ab initio electoral process or not. We had a court judgment in that respect, and later on I appealed that court judgment was faulted, even though it was not the verdict of the court of first instance that was faulted, but it was the process that was faulted. Because what the Court of Appeal was saying is that the person who initiated the proceeding, that's the claimant, did not have locus standi. Therefore, lack of locus standi also affected the jurisdiction of the court of first instance. Therefore, whatever that court of first instance did in that respect happened to be ineffective. So, but it's affirmed the decision of the lower court. So I learned, I'm not sure, that this decision of the Court of Appeal had moved to the Supreme Court for final verdict. Now, what I'm trying to say, irrespective of that, when this debacle was there in place, then also there was a presidential directive that all those that are aspiring for a post who express their, for an elective office, who express their interest to contest should resign. So in view of this, we put all things together and we wrote to parties, political parties, requesting them to send the list of all those that express their interest to contest for elective offices under their parties or through their parties, using the party platform. Now, this we are expecting a response from the political parties.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, now, Professor Mohammed, I mean, you must have heard the background that he rolled out, at least if you didn't really watch the program yesterday. But there were concerns raised as regards, corruption in the electoral process, which has already started. Some names were given, at least some of them have been mentioned on the background, talking about the page 2, talking about butterwood buying, talking about some other, ways of corrupting the electorate, and of course, the electorate corrupting the politicians and vice versa, and the whole thing becoming a problem. Are these not really concerns to the CCB?
They are very big concerns. When you look at the mandate of the CCB, the mandate of the CCB primarily is to enforce compliance with Code of Conduct for Public Officers, or compliance. That compliance with Code of Conduct for Public Officers is about ensuring that the Code of Conduct for Public Officers is enshrined under Part 1 of the 5th Schedule to the Constitution are fully observed. Mm-hmm. And the public officers, if you ask who is a public officer, Part 2 of the 5th Schedule also define who are the public officers. It did not spare any person who is taking salary or earning from the government coffers. Okay. It didn't spare any person. So what we are trying to say is of big concern. You see, what is there is a collaborative effort. If I want to buy votes as a politician, I will not succeed without collaboration of a public officer. The issue being that a police may be there, all security, law enforcement agencies are there. If somebody come at the polling station buying votes or sending his representative to do that for him, it is the duty of the police or whatever security personnel that is there to apprehend that person. If you did not do that, then there is a sort of a compromise on his side. And this buying votes cannot succeed also where there is total disregard of those that are trying to do it, because buying vote is in stages. It has a sort of layers, stratas. So the first strata is for those that will go directly and do it at the polling units, or they will go round to the electorates and buy it before the election, pay for the votes before the election. Then the second stage is a stage whereby you engage the electoral officers with their cooperation. Even if you do that one, you need this one.
Yeah.
So this is where you can come in, because the Code of Conduct Bureau is the police of the police and of all law enforcement officers. Then it can also go and ensure that whoever does anything wrong as a public officer, be him an electoral officer or whatever, in whatever capacity, even if it's an ad hoc staff, he is presumed to be a public officer at that point in time. So Code of Conduct Bureau can deal with him. So buying votes, what we are saying, if we are trying to take corruption, it's not just about buying vote. It is something that is systematic. You see, as I'm trying to explain, this thing we need to understand the background of the mandate. So if we have this mandate, like issue of conflict of interest, issue of abuse of office, and issue of bribery, all these things are part of the Code of Conduct for public officers.
Okay, Professor Issa, we will give you the opportunity to drill further into the areas around abuse of office and conflict of interest. Let's bring in the other guest to also weigh in on this issue. Undikato, let's have your take. What's your concern, if any, with what some others have described as the worrisome lead-up to the 2023 elections? How do we checkmate corruption in the process?
So I would always go back to the waste report. Primarily for me, it might seem a bit late to talk about this, but I still have serious concerns about the appointment of INEC officials. And I think that we can fix this. A lot of the time, I was just at an event with INEC yesterday, and you can see a lot of efforts they are putting in to trying to make sure that the 2023 elections goes as planned. The clog in the wheel is always politicians, of course, and politicians end up being the ones who appoint INEC figures, and that is the problem. The waste report says, let's put this, with NJC, let's put with other organizations to take this away from executive government. We could have solved it a long time before now if they had paid attention to all parts of the report, not just every comment coming in and picking up the time convenient and then leaving other parts of the report. And then we get to spending. I'm very concerned. We've seen on all parts bringing out money for these funds, and we've still not got to the main part of the campaign. I've heard on TV talk about officials, what they can do, but there's still that concern. Politicians remain in this wheel. They keep how far and go far because of weak systems. So we're looking at this spending already. We've seen so many people drop 100 million, people that you would know Where are you going to get this money from? The area in which you are leading is striking. Where is this money coming from? What is happening? And these monies keep coming up. When we get into the main elections, as we are going right now, it appears that more money will come out. And most of this money is going to come out from coffers of the state. So whether ruling party, whether opposition party, people are going to bring out money from Nigeria, from the pocket of Nigeria, to run an election. Another major concern for me is that, I don't know if we should call this corruption, but governance seems to have stopped. And it happens 2 years to election, they pause, and everything is focused on this. And I hope we can do something to checkmate this. Now, coming down to the people themselves, I saw snippets on vote buying and that conversation. And I want to quickly put forward that I think that just a little of solutions is that we've not gotten to that point where we are emotionally invested in elections yet. So people have not been able to marry elections and the delivery of government's goods and services to them yet. And this again comes down to politicians being a clog in the wheel of credible elections, being a clog in the wheel of government's delivery of government's services. So people don't think that this is a solution, that elections is a conduit, and they tend to want to collect money. I'm looking at how do we stop this? How do we make punishments more severe? Because what I've seen in the Electoral Act and the punishment for this, honestly, is not as severe as we would want it to be. That's one. Number two, how do we incentivize voting that when people see money, like in the case of Anambra, they no longer want to take it? There's poverty in the land, yes, but we must look at areas in which we can make sure that people are emotionally invested. We must make sure that election conversations are so charged up. And I'm not saying charged up towards violence. It's charged up towards, look, this thing is going to solve my problem. It's once in every 4 years. I really want to come here and put my best foot forward. So apart from trying to stop the politicians from doing what is wrong, we must look at incentives for the citizenry. That is very, very important to me. So these are a couple of, I hope I get an opportunity to talk going forward, but these are my issues going forward.
It's all right. It's okay. Indeed, we will get back to you later in the course of the program, but let's not forget that we have 2 topics to discuss today, so let's be a little bit sharp and apt in trying to respond to these questions and some of these issues. Reverend David, you were here yesterday. We heard you talk, and of course you elaborately spoke about how these things have been played out, and then categorized them into so many classes and of course so many phases and facets. But the whole thing, when I watched yesterday's program, of course had a lot of discussions with some other colleagues and some friends, it all boils down to the issue of institutions this time around. Institutions, weak institutions for that matter. Because if the institutions were really strong, we might have not been talking so much about it, because they would take care of certain things before they get too bad. What do you take on this?
Thank you very much. Again, I want to thank the CCB chairman, who has done some extensive background to what role CCB could play. I think, if you recall, everybody agreed that the role of institution in tackling corruption is very important. And even the common man in the market understands this very well. So what has happened in the case of Nigeria is that the issue of solution is what we are looking for. We know about the problem. Now we're talking about the election that is coming, about what possible impact corruption could impact on the election process, and we all agree about the damage it could do. But the problem now is that there is a market. Mm-hmm. There is a corruption market. And in that corruption market, there are demands and supply. So if you want to tackle the problem, so you must look into this relationship of demand and supply in the corruption market in relation to election. Mm. And the institutions that were created, even the recent act which the president signed, the actors that are supposed to be helping to implement, to enforce those institutions, to keep check the system in the market, they are all part of the market. And so it becomes very difficult for you not to take the equation into consideration that the man that is coming to pay for a vote, there is a demand. Mm-hmm. It's like a drug war. Mm-hmm. You know, the Western world are campaigning against drug, but there's market for it in the West. So there is a market for vote buying, and the people are complaining. You know, when the man that is contesting election comes to your village and say, look, I need your vote, there is a market for it. He gives you money and he collects your vote. He's in business. So how do we solve the problem in this corruption market? Unfortunately, and very problematic in this part of the world, institutions that were created to help check this corruption market are part of the problem and challenge. And it's a really very difficult problem. I recall when the UN treaty for corruption was being negotiated in Vienna, this going almost about 15 to 20 years ago, and I was in Vienna, we were negotiating it. The real challenge is about when the institutions that are established to help tackle corruptions are now involved in it, it becomes a problem. And just to give you an example, Philippine Marcos was thrown out of power because of corruption a few years ago. Do you know that the son has returned back to power? That's how corruption works. So the problem in Nigeria is that institutions that are supposed to help checkmate corruption in the corruption market are part of the problem in Nigeria. And that's why President Buhari said why he was signing those bills into law, that there must be cooperation and collaboration. And I was very happy when you answered that question a while ago, when CCB sent a letter to those political parties. Do they have the response now? Because for the CCB to operate efficiently, they have to have a database to act in real time. But the challenge and why the market for corruption continues to thrive in this part of the world, the political will to make this happen is a big challenge. Unfortunately, you cannot legislate under political will. You cannot, you can create laws, but the political will to enforce those laws is something you cannot create law around. And so, why do you ensure that that political will happens? And that's where the peoples come. So in the market of this corruption, the people are actually the victim of the impact of corruption. Do they really want corruption to thrive? Do they want this market of corruption to end? And that is the question. I will put it this way. Is there incentive to be a man of integrity in Nigeria? And that's why I made an example yesterday and said, if Dr. Kisley decide to take a presidential form and said he wants to contest election, I use this as an example. Will Nigerians vote for him? So this is the question you must ask an average Nigerian who is saying no to corruption, no to vote buying. The reality is that what they say is not what that happens. And so the market for corruption thrives. And so you can see how it has thrived to the extent of 100 million for a form. And now you can see in the last few days, now the president just took a decision, very smart one. I must commend the president. Now that you have taken a form, you've decided that you want to contest election, please resign. And you have seen what has happened in a few days. You have seen. So you can see how people can trade. That is a business. It's a business. And so the reality of the corruption market is that the momentum to change the equation, this demand and supply, is not there. The institutions that are supposed to enforce the system is not there. But what is the way out? The way out is that it's creating an awareness. And that is what our sister have rightly noted. The relationship between corruption and the challenge we have in the country today. ASU is on strike. And then the recent revelation by EFCC to say that they have just arrested the Auditor General. Is it the Auditor General? Accountant General. And that to the tune of 80 billion. And then this morning again, you have also read in the newspaper, EFCC have also arrested the former speaker. So all these stories put together, they are part of this corruption market. So these are key actors. Do you see it? Do you see the Accountant General? 80 billion. Allegation, yes. EFCC. EFCC is not it's an key anti-corruption institution. So if EFCC stick their credibility
to disclose to Nigerians that a sitting accountant general, they've traced 80 billion. That's an element of part of the corruption market. Then in 2011, the former speaker, this time around, they have genderized the corruption. A woman is a speaker. Now, was also traced to 240 million. NDDC. NDDC was created to create life for people to prosper in the Niger Delta region. And you trace the lack of prosperity in the region to the conflict and damage to the entire region. So you can see that this market is populated with these institutions that are supposed to create change, and they are not happening. So what should be our solution? How do we handle those institutions that are supposed to be helping us to enforce? You can see that the key actors in those institutions are part of the market that is making sure that this market continue to thrive. So how do we end this market of corruption? I think this is the real challenge.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, the Reverend David Ugolo. I want to bring in again Undi Kato to this issue that you touched on it briefly, and David has recited it as a question to say that the market for corruption thrives because Nigerians themselves are not determined to end the market. And if so, how do we incentivize ourselves to say this market has to be disrupted or ultimately put out of business?
So, I'll put it, I hope every time I come here I don't put work to the media, but it's really a good a large chunk of this work is it's a media thing. As gatekeepers, and of course we all know the gatekeeper theory for those of us who did mass comm, you actually control what people think, how they see things, and I think that we have that responsibility. Just outside before we came in, we're discussing how we have an ostentatious culture. I think we've talked about this before, and there is no reward for doing good as it is right now. You know, you join a line, you become the last person. You join a line and stick to the line, you may not be able to buy fuel. You know, you vote for the right person and you come out of the of the polling booth and somebody tells you, I collected 5K, I enjoyed. The person you ended up voting for may not do the work that you voted for him to do. And the person who collected 5K reminds you, thank God I collected. So it's round and round, and it's a lot of work we need to do to get back to the point where we make sure that there are rewards. I really, really like what the current EFCC chairman is doing. There might not be perfection in that job. Yes, he is not, I mean, we may never get to that perfect point, but we are seeing that, look, there are no-go areas anymore. This young man will pick anybody. You would sit down tomorrow and might possibly hear the president has been taken by EFCC at this point. And it points to people that look...
President of an association.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying he's guilty. I'm just saying that I'm trying to point out how far this young man can go. Yes. And I think it continues to show that, look, whether in power or not in power, we can pick you. That is a huge step in ensuring that we cut down on corruption. And when we cut down corruption at the top and people at the lower part of the ladder see that, look, you know, people are being punished for doing these things, it starts to cut down at the bottom. And coming back to the election conversation, for me, we have seen candidates who have come forward with great ideas. We need to make sure that the conversation around elections is around government's delivery of services, not who married whose daughter, not what region the person comes from, not what religion the person comes from, not whether they are driver or all of whether they had shoes or did not have shoes. We must bring election conversations back to the point of government delivery of services and make the populace understand that this is what elections are about. If we saturate the space with these conversations and people turn left and right and they don't see, because what people see is what we put before them. And right now, before the media, you would see, open the papers and you would see strange things that have to do with nothing that can be delivered to the people at the end of the day with respect to elections. You will see things on people who have been in politics since 1999, I've given my whole life to this, it is time for you to pay me back. These are not concrete conversations that would make people that invested. So now we must look at, again, the major incentive I'm putting forward. The major incentive is government's delivery of services. That elections must be seen as a conduit to which you get good delivery of government services. And because that is the only route you can see to getting this, you dedicate your everything, your last energy to ensure that the elections go right. All our conversations must be directed like that. Everything the media is saying around elections must be directed like that. Everything around behavioral change must be like that. And with that, we can now see people focus on what the media has put before them. It's what you put before us that we think about. It's what you put before us that we will act on. And we must continue to tailor messages like that. I think that this is like a major solution on the side of the populace in terms of elections. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Ndikato. And let's hear from Professor Muhammad Isa of the CCB. Lisa, she's spoken about, what the people, or what should be done about the people, and what the people should do about themselves in order to get some reorientation and face the fact as it is, that it is not about the stipend we get at the moment, but about development for the community and for the nation generally. And then Reverend, David here mentioned the issue of, the corruption market, where even the institutions are part of it. I may not want to say the joint institution is part of it, but at least it's one of the institutions in this country that's supposed to check corruption anyway. But all the same, looking back at what I asked him, I want to really throw it back to you. And she has already answered one part of the question that's talking about the people. What about the institutions?
Institutions are very much important in relation to fighting corruption. You see, not just an issue of an institution is a specialized institution for that matter. But every institution has its own internal mechanisms for ensuring that good is done. There are internal mechanisms for ensuring discipline and ethics. So when you talk of ethics of work, when you talk of discipline in a workplace, when you talk of doing the right thing in a workplace, you are talking about checking corrupt tendencies that may likely manifest into corrupt practices within that system.
But are we getting that from the CCB, for instance, where you had really, let's talk about checkmating corruption now in the electoral process?
Yes. CCB, its own primary mandate, as I said earlier, is to ensure ethics in workplace, to ensure discipline in workplace, and also to enforce the law. It has preventive mandate, and it has a mandate to control where it happens. So what we are saying, you find out that when we are trying to ensure that there is no abuse of office, no conflict of interest, no bribery, these three major issues have been the canker worm in the issue of corruption. There are so many other things. We administer asset declaration, and from that we can be able to see. It's the mirror through which we can be able to see how far a public officer conducts himself in relation to amassing wealth. Where a public officer declared his assets legally and he submitted to Code of Conduct Bureau, he's not expected to be living above his lawful means. So any wealth in excess of his lawful means is a wealth that he will be called upon to account.
Okay, Professor Isa, earlier you raised the two issues relating to corruption and the electoral process, namely abuse of office and conflict of interest. What are the ingredients of this?
The ingredients of abuse of office is a situation whereby somebody, a person or a public officer in particular, use his office, that is to say the authority and power he has by virtue of being in that office, draw any benefit to himself or to another person maybe he tends to favor, or use that office to inflict certain damages or injury on another person. This is abuse of office. Conflict of interest is closely related to abuse of office in a situation whereby somebody's interest is always put paramount first before his official interest. And where there is that situation, you find out that there will be bound to be a conflict of interest. There is need where a public officer has a personal interest in any matter relating to his office to declare that personal interest. If he declared his interest or private interest, then it will be clear that a borderline will be drawn between that personal interest and official interest. And where he has not been so self-restraint, there is no self-restraint to the extent that his personal interest will cross that borderline to conflict with his official interest, then there is said to be a conflict of interest. And that conflict of interest is something that will lead to a lot of problems of corruption. Now, going back to electoral process to relate this to code of conduct matters, abuse of office, conflict of interest. A public officer that is mandated or vested with power to preside over electoral process, such a public officer must maintain certain level of neutrality. He must ensure that the ethic of umpire, the ethic of being an umpire must also be maintained. He's there as an umpire. So if he has done anything to expose himself to favor one party to the detriment of another party unlawfully, such a public officer is said to either be in abuse of office or in conflict of interest. Linking this to vote buying, you find out that, as I said, it's in stages. There are different strata to the issue of vote buying. Vote buying at a stage of engaging electoral officers, even the ad hoc electoral officers, you find out that issue of abuse of that office or privilege, the power vested in him, either at the polling station or at the collation center or at the result announcement center or at wherever, at whichever place where the result may be manipulated to favor one party against another, you see that the issue of vote buying can be there. Here at this stage, you may not see exchange of money for services, but sometimes there is a huge transaction behind the back doors between the electoral officers and the politicians.
Yeah, Prof, before we round up this program, because we've been pressing for time, really, some of the guests yesterday spoke about, using paraphernalia of office, that is, during electioneering and politicking, now giving them undue advantage over other contestants. It also been felt as a form of corruption. Do you agree to that?
Yes, we agree to that, but thanks to the Mr. President that he is trying to bring a full stop to that. He's trying to bring a halt to that. This is exemplary of what he has done, that all public officers who express their interest to contest, who express their interest at that stage, you have been cut off from the office. So if you are interested in contesting, so the issue of using paraphernalia of office does not arise in this situation. But I agree with you 100%. That is an added advantage that the politicians use against their opponents, those who are not having offices. Now, if we can go further, since we are not getting matured in the political processes and electoral processes, even those that are holding elective offices, let's amend our Constitution and Electoral Act to that effect. So because the whole issue on Section 84 sub 12 that is it is unconstitutional. Now, if the constitution is amended,
to what effect?
To the effect that anybody who wants to elect or who wants to contest for an election should resign from his office, even if he's an elective officer.
Okay, that is even if it's an incumbent.
Yes, even if he's an incumbent.
Yes.
So a time limit be given to him for him to join the election. So the constitution itself, the electoral process, the electoral act itself, and other enabling laws be amended.
Yes. In that case, you have people who are acting on that behalf. Well, that's a conversation that we'll pursue on another occasion.
Yes.
Because if we were to take it to the legislature, for instance, there have been arguments in the past that the high turnover of members doesn't quite conduce to deepening the experience and knowledge base you require for lawmaking. So if those who are in the legislature are seeking re-election, it means that you are likely to have a legislature that is functioning at some point. But as I said, that's a conversation that we can't pursue. But there's a matter, I know that the Reverend, you are itching to say something. There's an urgent matter at hand. And this is part of what we are all familiar with on account of what we have read and heard in the past. The party primaries are around the corner. There have been instances in the past where delegates, if it's an indirect primary, where delegates are quarantined in a hotel or in a certain location because they are alleged to have been purchased by certain aspirant and are not therefore allowed to move and then don't go and get other resources. In other words, there is a concern that lots of money will move around during the primaries. And once the candidates emerge, the electorate will be stuck with those candidates. How can this part of this mechanics of the corruption market be destabilized? That is to say, the delegates trading. How can it be destabilized ahead of, how do we do that if you have some ideas?
I think you are bringing the term very clear now, delegates trading. So these are some of the elements, and I hope Nigerians
I've not been part of it,
so let me explain some things so that we understand. Even our sister also said it. We all know about the problem. I think the solution, and it's not just Nigeria alone, tackling the challenge of corruption is a big problem. So in that delegate market, the institutions are there. For example, money don't fly in the air. They move through the banks. NFIU was created. It's an institution created to track suspicious movement of fund. Their role is very clear. The banks, they have rules. If an amount, certain amount is moved from an account, they have to report to NFIU. So, and with such suspicious reporting, the anti-corruption agency can take action. But why is it not happening? Are we not getting suspicious reporting in the country? In a country that is adjudged, Nigeria performance in the last 3 years in the corruption perception index has been going down. As a matter of fact, as we scored the lowest one in 2021, is that we scored 24 out of 100, which is a poor performance. Now, the reason is that CCB is there. Is that not so? With more reference to our chairman. Why? Yesterday, EFCC reported that the Accountant General is traced with 80 billion. The 80 billion that is traced to the Accountant General, according to EFCC, was it secured one day? Did he not declare his asset declaration? Did he not follow the code of conduct? Did he not declare conflict of interest? So why did it happen?
That's talking about the institution this time.
Yes, no, I'm not saying that because why is it that? Because if the CCB laws are complied with by the Accountant General,
okay.
So what it means is that the institutions, they want to do their work. The political will that I mentioned earlier on
is a frustrating factor.
It's a frustrating factor for institutions to function.
Okay.
Because, and then the issue is that if the weak look, the accountability. If an institution is responsible to take on issues and they're not taking on it, whose responsibility to hold them accountable?
Fantastic. Good question. I mean, this is an ongoing conversation.
Yes.
You've made your points, but it just one liner on what can be done to destabilize the delegates market ahead of the primaries. We had seen in elections in the past, sometimes state governors will declare holidays so that banks will not be open some days before the election in all cycle season. Sometimes flights will not be allowed to land in certain airports because they know that the traders are coming. So how do you destabilize this now? Very quickly, one liner.
Okay, delegates are human beings. I think that what we need is political party reforms at the end of the day, more involvement of people with these political parties. The strong men of political parties should not own, which is what happens now. They own these political parties. If political party members are allowed to pay their dues, political parties actually submit more to the authorities, we'll see less of this. So please, what we need right now is active political party reforms to stop this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Oh, well, that's it on this segment, and of course on this very topic this morning, checkmating corruption in electoral process. Thank you, Professor Mohammed Issa, the program chairman of Code of Conduct Bureau, for being part of the discussion.
Thank you for
a very big thank you to Indy Kato, also a public affairs analyst. It's a pleasure being part of it.
Thank
you. Reverend.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. And thank you again, because we carry over thank you from yesterday to today. You've been part of it.
Thank you very much.
Thank
sir.
you so much.
Thanks.
We'll now take a break. We'll be back with the second leg of our discussion that's talking about Politicians Scorecard 1992-2022. Stay with us after this break.
You're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. After decades of military rule, Nigeria returned to democratic governance in 1999. In recognition of the contributions of notable political players to the sustenance of the country's democracy, the Dividends of Democracy Awards have been put together to honor men and women who have impacted lives and society. Joining us now this morning to talk about the awards is Rufus Oba, initiator and coordinator of the Dividends of Democracy Awards. Mr. Rufus Oba, pleasure to have you with us this morning.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay. Now, tell us, why the awards?
Yeah. Every human being likes to be celebrated or to be praised. Even God himself, which is why he said he's a jealous God. That means he does not have to take any other thing or persons above him. So if we go praising people, like God said, well, even in our churches, we give testimonies when a good deed is done. The devil himself, asks for sacrifices. That's a way of celebrating, a way of thanking, or come to thank him. They're praising him when they go to give sacrifices to the devil too. So you see, as humans too, when we are praised, or if we are being appreciated, he encourages us to do more. So that's why we said it would be good for us now for Nigerians, actually. We've never thought about it. We elect officials, we put them there in their respective representing their positions, and we don't do nothing about watching them or congratulating them or appreciating them. And that's the problem. So they go there, they just think on their home. They're on their own. They're on their own, but they're not. They need to be appreciated. They need to be celebrated. They need to be recognized. They need to be honored. That's what we're trying to do, to encourage them to do more. Saying thank you for the services that you've rendered to us, for the services that you've made available, for the policies that you've initiated that have impacted lives. We say thank you for them to do more.
And now, that being the case, which is a good initiative, and of course it encourages people to do more, that's a sort of telling you've done this good, you need to do more, check this for this, and be aware of this, and things like that. Yeah. How old is this award issue? Yeah. Or when is this starting? Or when has it started?
This is the premier edition. This is the very first premier edition. And we are trying our best. We're putting everything together to be sure that it's prestigious, creditable, and it is the most sought for award. That's what we're doing. That is the first edition, and it will be coming up on the 27th of July.
27th of July
in Abuja.
Now, let's do the selection criteria. Therefore, let's know what exactly is on it. What are you looking at?
Yeah, we're looking at, basically we are looking at transparency, accountability, integrity, leadership qualities. This is what we are looking at. These are just, the criteria that we're going to be basing the awards on, the selection of the awards on. But it's up to Nigerians now. It's the people-oriented excellence awards for Nigerians now to tell us who these persons that have done well are. We're not the ones to just choose. Nigerians have the options. Nigerians of all ages have the options now to just tell us that yes, Mr. So and so from so state has done well to deserve an award or to be celebrated or to be honored. So it's that, the people-oriented awards. We don't have nothing they are doing. The only part we are playing the house is to be sure that whatever they've talked about, the policies that they've initiated, the scholarships that they've given out to people, the lives that they are taught are genuine, are real. And we're doing that, putting together journalists from all over the country, selected journalists, activists, women groups, market women, students, to confirm some of these things that they've told us about, they're talking about, that they actually did. So it's not just the votes that Nigerians are going to give to us. We're going to be sure that we go out to assess and to confirm these things that they've talked about.
Tell us some more about the mechanics for choosing the honorees. You talked about market women, journalists, and
confirming.
They're going to confirm. And you said Nigerians will be involved.
Yes.
How is it going to work out?
That's what I mean. Like the online. We've started the process of voting, online voting now. We've started that process, and we're working towards the SMS. It's been a bit complicated, a bit complex with the NTC license, all that. But we're hoping that before, by May-June, that we'll be able to get through with that for Nigerians even in the rural areas to have the opportunity to use their phones to tell us who these persons are. But right now, the whole online voting is on.
What are they voting on?
Yeah, they're voting on transparency. We've talked about lives impacted. We're talking about integrity. We're talking about accountability. Yes, we voted these persons to the office and they've been there for over 3 years. What have they done? You have to score people. You don't just send your child to school and every year without seeing the results of what is done and all of that. So this is what a good opportunity for the ones to be able to speak up. To speak up their mind, to just say, well, fine. Yes, you've represented us, or you've been there for about 3 years, you've been there for about 4 years. What have you done? To us, no, you didn't do well. We still do not have waters, because that's meant to be part of the dividends of democracy. We still do not have water, we still do not have light in our areas and all of that. Mr. A or Mr. B, you didn't do well. And so from the scorecards, if you didn't do well, there's no one going to bring you back. There will be a second chance, a second opportunity for people that didn't do well at all. So that's it. It's not over Nigeria. It's not in Nigeria. We know what's happening in the markets. We know what's happening in the streets. So, it's open for everybody to just say, well, yes, he did well. No, you didn't do well and all of that. So it's the scorecard to scoring all the politicians. You just say, well, in the area of accountability, I don't want to go talk about more what's happening right now that is making the news all over. About one man taking about 80 billion naira of everybody's money. That's great. And I don't think anybody was going to vote for a man like that, in a world like this, that we are working to be sure that it's prestigious and creditable. So we're looking out for people that that have character, people that have leadership qualities, people that are selfless.
What are the categories of the awards?
Yeah, we have about four categories of awards. 4 categories. One for 7 politicians from about 2019 date now, and that's award. That category is it's called Award of Fame and Legacy. We want to be sure of the legacies you are leaving. What have you done for us to see? Like we say in the local parlance, show walking. The show walking. Let's see what you did or what you've done. So that's the first category, fame and legacy.
For 7 politicians?
Yeah, for 7 politicians now, from about 2019 to present 7 politicians. That's the first category, fame and legacy. Let's see what you have done. Let's see the lives that you've touched. Let's see the policies, the people-friendly policies that you were able to initiate. There are people that have been there for about 8 years and haven't, initiated the bill. 8 years. There are people, if you just go through House of Representatives and go Senate, go through the records. They've been there for 8 years, and because we did not score them, because, we just felt, we're not part of it, they just do what they like. It still comes back. But if we shout, like everybody, like you said, it's involving market women, it's involving, students from everywhere. So we just say, no, for the social person, no, it doesn't deserve to come back here because he hasn't done well.
And when you say fame and legacy here, having politicians, lots of Nigerians are serving politicians now at the moment, a huge number of them. House of Representatives, House Senators, House of Assembly members, governors, and then, I mean, how is there any classification or categorization in this regard, talking about governors alone or legislators alone or whatever? How are we going to come to the,
this is an example. Yes, we have about 36 governors in Nigeria. So now when I look at it, I mean, when you talk about fame and legacy now, so amongst the 36 governors, who did better? Who is the best amongst these 36 governors? Oh, we look at it from the votes and for what they've done. I was going there, okay.
Well, fine. You've said fame and legacy.
Yeah.
That's one category.
Yes.
Are there other categories?
Oh, there are. The second category is called, award for role models.
Okay, role model awards.
Yes, role models awards. That's the second category. Okay. And for this now, we're talking about people that were in office from 1999, that are no longer in office now, that did well, they left a mark. I mean, they left things for us to see. I mean, those are the people we're talking about. I mean, give them opportunity. You're talking about politicians, and the award is just premiered this year. We don't just have to talk about people or celebrate people that are in office now. Let's be able to think about, to remember, people that have left a mark, that done things good for us too. So yes, that's called the award for real.
Are these awards for national players, or you are reaching down also to acknowledge and recognize persons who have also impacted on their communities, on their states or local governments in the course of the country's Fourth Republic?
Fourth Republic?
Well, I'm talking about Fourth.
Okay, Fourth Republic. Yeah, sure. That's what I said from 1999. We're talking about people that have done well from about 1999. That's this category. Award for role models. People from about 1999, from local government chairmen to the House of Assembly members, everybody from 1999 that did well. That has done well, that has left a mark. That has improved on society. Yes, that's the award. That's the category for them. Yes.
Okay. I see that your emphasis, at least so far from our interaction, is on politicians, and politicians.
Okay.
But politicians alone do not ensure the functioning of any democracy.
Sure.
So what happens to the other players in the democratic matrix?
Sure. Well, with Nigerians, and like you just asked that, yes, there are plans also. That we're not categorizing. There are plans also to be able to pick up some Nigerians that have touched life that are not politicians. I'm going to be like, they have about 10 species for that. 10 notable Nigerians that have touched lives. They may be church leaders, whatever. People that have made impact, that have made a difference. Some of them, are outside the politics, like you just mentioned. Yeah, for being, advocate, for speaking up, because that's what democracy is all about. The beauty of democracy is to be able to, give us the opportunity to speak up our rights and have the opportunity to make a change. That's what democracy is. So there are people that are not in government now that have made a difference by speaking up. By pushing the government, to do, like an opposition. They said no government is secured without a formidable opposition. So there are people that have, that are able to put them on their edge, and which is part of the problems that we have here in Nigeria. Yeah, we do not believe, or we do not know as citizens that we have the right to change any government. We just felt, the few persons that have the opportunity to get to the offices, have all the rights. No, we as electorates have the power, and we're not using that power. We're not involved in politics, which is so very wrong in Nigeria. So wrong. And that's why we're not enjoying the dividends.
The label dividends of democracy.
Yeah.
We heard this phrase from Professor Jerry Ghana in the early part of the Fourth Republic, sometime in year 2000 or year 2001, where there were concerns around the country after years of military rule, whether since 1999, there were things to show for the democratic experience that we're having. That's well over 20 years ago. Today, some persons are likely to also ask the same question. and say, look, if we interrogate ourselves truly and deeply, can we applaud the quality and quantum of the dividends of democracy that we're having to justify the awards that you have initiated and you are coordinating?
I'd like to take up this quote from John Ruskin. And he says, the people that bear the burden of government should equally enjoy its benefits. Now I'm talking about the politicians. I want to talk about, if you're not involved in politics, like I say, in some of my quotes, I say, if you're not involved in politics, don't complain or don't expect to get any gains. Because democracy is people getting involved to pick or to choose who their leaders are going to be. So if you're not part of that process of wanting to vote, or part of that process of picking or selecting or voting for your for your representatives, you not complain. You don't have to complain if you don't want to be. You lose the right to complain if you're not part of the process. And that's one thing I want to talk about for Nigerians who are able to use progress. Go get your PVC. Because that's your power. You have the power in the democratic settings to change if things are not working, which is part of what we're doing. This is like the public opinion polls, it's done in America. So look at the results, the government is not performing well, we'll come up, from all of these ways, and we'll say, well, fine. It's just area we didn't do well, you're not doing well, the policies and all of this are not working. For people to just say, we do not do all of these things. And so they carry on as themselves, what I could say. But there has to be a check. Like you are asking, the essence of any good government is for the government to work side by side with these people, producing or providing conducive environments for them to be able to achieve their dreams. No government in the world gives all the employment or gives all the jobs to people. But they have to give us a conducive environment. Are we there yet? No, we're not. We're not there yet. We're not there yet, but we're getting there.
Okay, Mr. Rufus, but normally, in the recent, we are the initiator and coordinator of the awards. And then one may really ask, sometimes awards like this one that are being given, Nigerians and other people who want to know who are behind the awards. And of course, does it have a broader, bigger picture of Nigeria as directors or as members or as board members or whatever at the top of it? Who are behind this? You are the initiator anyway and the coordinator, but who are behind this very award?
Sure. You can dream alone, strive alone, but you cannot achieve good success without the support of the people. Yes, good dreams, like you say, and all of that, to strive with and we're working. I will need the support of Nigerians. It concerns all of us. So it's not just coordinator, initiator, go do this. It affects all of us. And these are things we haven't been doing before now. We need to be part of the system, part of the process, to be able to do all of this. So far right now, we are partnering with NTA TV Enterprise. We have NUJ as partners too. We have Invicta Radio and Kaduna, that's in Kaduna. We have Kabido newspapers and Abuja newspaper from Kaduna too and all of that. That is open for sponsors or people that want to partner to come in because it concerns all of us.
When you say we, who are you referring to here? Are you referring to your partners or you and some other people?
I'm talking about Nigerians now when I say we. I've mentioned the partners that we, NTA, TV, are partners. They are partners, they like the initiative, but they are working to make sure, it becomes a success. They are working. We have Nigerian Union of Journalists that are part of it and they are working too. They are reaching out to people to everywhere. And we have an Invicta Radio station who have, like I mentioned, Kabido, that's an Hausa, newspaper. But it's open, like I said, for all the Nigerians because it concerns us. That's all about democracy. That's about democracy. To speak up, to act, to speak up, to think, to changing the government, to changing a system that is not working or a policy that is not working. So it's we're talking about we as all of us as Nigerians.
Okay. What is unfolding now, you said, is the premier edition.
Yeah, sure it is.
What is your conception of the awards? After the first one now, you are likely to have another one?
Yeah, after every 2 years. I think that's good enough for me to just to have, things to show, to have a records or to be able to, see things that they've done. Every 2 years, we're looking at every 2 years in office. I think that's good enough. In every 2 years,
if somebody were to read politics into what you are doing, say this is the election season and this has come up now, is this not intended to drum support for one or two persons? What would your response to that?
Well, I don't know, Nigerians would not like to hear this from me, but I say it. I don't envy politicians, I tell you the truth. I really don't envy them. You know, but for those that have performed or those that have done well, I mean, I believe it would be nice for us to just, encourage and to celebrate and to honor them, which is what I'm doing. I don't envy them. Really, I don't envy them.
Yeah, you don't really, but the fact is, at this point in time, when this award, this initiative is coming on board, his question will be very pertinent. Right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, well, fine. Yes, there's an election, and what do? They wait till after 3 years, close to an election time. I mean, they just come and they just go to the markets, they buy bags of rice, they come to give to people and all of those kind of things. I was saying, no, this style shouldn't work anymore. It shouldn't work anymore. Speak up even before the election so that when they come with their rights and all of that, you know who. I mean, from the records now that we have, from their score sheets. This is the score sheets. It's like a score sheet. We are scoring them now. For the past 2.5 years, I mean, they've been in office. So we are scoring them from the score sheet now. We are having a score sheet now, right now. So from the score sheet now, so when they come with their rice, or when they come with the blenders, or when they come with the wrappers, you not say, no, you that didn't not know, you that never been initiated one bill. I mean, I don't think I should go for you.
Where will the awards take place? Will it be Shiroro, or Goza, or in Emoha in Rivers?
Well, these are cities in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
But we've chosen Abuja. This is like the central place. Abuja is big enough. I mean, it's safe right now. So it's big enough to, taking all of these politicians and everybody. And in the awards, I didn't tell you about the special category where we're going to celebrate and honor past presidents. Past presidents that have made impact, from 1999. I mean, that's our focus right now is from 1999. So past presidents that have made this impact, yes, we're going to be able to appreciate them too. So Abuja is just about the best place for this, to take in everybody. This is not a political rally, to take in everybody from all the parties, all the influential politicians, people of influence all over the country, to be at a place to celebrate and to be encouraged.
All right, Mr. Rufus Oba, initiator and coordinator of the Dividends of Democracy Awards. We thank you for being our guest on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Thank you. And I never had the opportunity to talk about the website of where people are meant to vote.
Well, we are pressed for time.
Okay.
I'm sure there will be, we'll have about 20, 25 minutes on this conversation. So what is the website?
Yes, the website that is www.dodan.com.ng. That's www.dodan.com.ng. That's the website. Visit the website and vote now. Vote is ongoing. Choose your leaders now. You have the opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Rufus, and best wishes.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. The program returns tomorrow, same time, 7 in the morning. Look after yourselves. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Yusuf Narabusu. Have a really great day.